Hello and welcome back to World 360. Earlier this week on Father's Day, one son raised awareness about his father, a doctor and human rights activist who has been imprisoned in China for 20 years now. Times Wang, a lawyer who founded US-based law firm North River Law, brought attention to his father, Wang Bingzhang, in a tweet on Monday. He recalled how at the age of 16, his last words to his father before visiting him in prison were, "I could never respect a man who chooses to leave his wife without a husband and his children without a father." Later, he explained how he developed great respect for his father and his struggle. Times law firm in the US is in fact named after the prison where his father served the first several years of his sentence. Wang Bingzhang, who must be 75 years today, is a well-known Chinese pro-democracy activist and political prisoner. He was first detained on suspicion of terrorism and other charges in July 2002 and currently lives in solitary confinement in Shaoguan prison in Guangdong. Over Twitter DM, Times Wang told me that he is allowed to write his father letters, and though few immediate family members can visit the prison, most of the family has been banned from entering China. According to a report by CBC, it was in the 70s that Wang, while attending McGill University in Canada to study medicine, began working underground for the Chinese pro-democracy movement. After his studies, he moved to New York, where he set up a magazine, China Spring, which advocated for democracy in China. By 1983, he helped form the Chinese Alliance for Democracy, the first organization dedicated to the democratic movement in China. He had also published a pamphlet called The Path to China's Democratic Revolution, which was viewed by the Chinese government as quote-unquote revolutionary and a sort of handbook for terrorist activities. According to the CBC report, while traveling to Vietnam, Wang was kidnapped and handed over to Chinese authorities. And after a closed trial, he was convicted on espionage charges and sentenced to life in prison. There was an outcry from the international community, and the UN has repeatedly called his detention arbitrary. But Wang is just one of the many 1.7 million people imprisoned in China, the second highest prison population in the world after the US. If we look at the World Prison Brief, the official number of prisoners in China is 1.69 million. But due to lack of data on how many people are held in detention centers, this figure could only tell us one part of the story. The US, meanwhile, has a prison population of about 2.06 million. But if we look deeper into the incarceration rates and the number of political prisoners, China appears to be in the lead. For starters, it was found earlier this year that a Uyghur county in China has the highest imprisonment rate in the world, known as Konashehir County. Nearly 1 in every 25 people in this area are jailed, mainly on terrorism charges. China has also been described as the global leader in political prisoners by Arch Puddington, a scholar at US-based nonprofit Freedom House. In a 2018 piece, he writes that the Chinese Communist Party's attitude towards political dissent seems to be worse than the Soviet regime under Leonid Brezhnev from 1964 to 1982, wherein prison sentences in China are much longer, early release is rare, and so on. Another research paper points out that dissidents who are arrested before certain events, such as the Tiananmen Square anniversary, tend to have shorter imprisonment periods. But it's part of the Chinese regime's catch and release dynamic to quell dissent as quickly as possible. Also, if we look at the US and China, the world's first and second largest prison populations, China seems to have a more restricted policy with regard to communication between their prisoners and the outside world. Unlike in the US, where prisoners are allowed to write to anyone, Chinese prisoners can only write to family members. They also don't have access to phone calls, though some human rights groups have found that such rules can be made lenient depending on the prisoner. Thank you so much for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint. Do subscribe to ThePrint and follow us on social media.